Welcome to Grid Talk. My name is George Housen, and today we are here to preview the 2025 Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. Joining me today, we have Grid Talk's Owain Medford and Sophia Richmond.
Let's talk a bit about Red Bull, Owain, because they are such a hard team to read, really, when it comes to their performance. Max Verstappen obviously winning in Japan last weekend. This weekend, really off it in qualifying and in the race. I think Verstappen did pretty well to get sixth. He only managed to get that on the last lap ahead of Pierre Gasly. And it's not even a case of the second Red Bull being miles and miles off. Sonoda finished a not too bad P9 in the circumstances, but for some reason that car just did not get on with this track. Is this something that's a bit circuit specific? Are we going to expect to see maybe more of this weekend coming up in Saudi Arabia? What's your kind of thoughts on this?
It's a bit weird, isn't it? Because obviously we sort of seemed to be relatively in tune with the car and managed to extract a decent amount of performance from it. Did Max Verstappen in Japan, and it's relatively similar in some ways, where it's a lot of medium speed corners, and then you've got a sort of a couple of long straights. Obviously they're DRS affected, so maybe that changes it um, in the case of Bahrain, but something was not sort of it just he Verstappen just wasn't gelling with the car. It wouldn't stop, it wouldn't turn, it wouldn't. He was having oversteer, he was having understeer. All through practice and even in the race itself, we saw that Verstappen was having to wait for the car to hook up and turn in, and then, as I say, the rear just wouldn't bite in places. It just seemed to have problems kind of everywhere, and I don't know whether that's a tire issue or where they're more suited maybe to the resurfaced first sector of Japan compared to Bahrain, or but did not seem to work for them whatsoever, and we saw sort of the real performance of the car, and I think it's kind of worrying. I mean, they didn't help themselves in any case. I mean, bearing in mind that normally Red Bull is, they're the envy of everyone else when it comes to pit stops, and they were messing that up when it comes to, apparently it was a wiring issue or something with the automated pit stop pit stop lights that tell them when to go so that they don't do an unsafe release. And then there was an issue with the wheel gun getting the wheel off. It's just something about Red Bull is now, the cracks are showing. And it's so odd to see that when they were in the position that McLaren were, even, last year at this stage. And that's not even to mention 2 years prior, sorry, the two preceding years where, yeah, maybe Ferrari could take it to them, but the rest of the time they've been the best. And it's so weird to see that after four races in 2020, in 2025 where they don't even look like the same team anymore. These are almost amateur mistakes, and like gremlins popping up that we're not used to seeing. I don't know. I can't think of anything that would have caused the kind of issues that they were having. Maybe we didn't see it because it's Sonoda and they're more trained on Verstappen, but we didn't see those kind of issues for him. But clearly, um, clearly he's within a ballpark of Max's performance. Bearing in mind he's 11 seconds behind at the finish, over 27 laps. We'll just take it from there. Obviously there would have been maybe a few seconds between them, but either way, that's around 0.3 second a lap, let's say, which is super weird to see because you'd imagine Verstappen would be much further ahead. So I do not know what is going on at Red Bull and where they seem to be. They look quite lost, to be perfectly honest, and I don't see it improving in the short term, or even worse. I don't see a we can't even draw a pattern here, and they'll have more data than we do, but I don't think they can either. So it's worrying to see a team that was in like I say in McLaren's position is now struggling so much with not even Verstappen presuming to be able to get a handle on the car, and the team not being able to fix it at any point during the weekend.
Yeah, it's really odd. I mean, even after Max Verstappen qualified down in seventh place, you thought, oh, he's probably going to be challenged by for challenge for the podium by the end at least. He's just he's usually on that level, particularly during the race, but he just absolutely showed no sign of it. And I know it's not as simple as saying Adrian Newey leaving the team is the reason why they're struggling, but the timing is, I mean, you can draw it. There's definitely a correlation there, if not a causation. It's an interesting one for sure. But let's talk a bit about George Russell because he's kind of ghosting his way into a championship challenge potentially. Now, we asked a couple weeks back when it was the Chinese Grand Prix. I think I was actually asked this question by Ruby, and she was asking, "Are Mercedes in a title fight?" And frankly, I don't think they are in terms of the Constructors' Championship. I feel like McLaren are really going to take special beating, to be honest with you. But in the drivers right now, Sophia, everybody's saying that Norris and Piastri and Verstappen are all in that battle, but Russell isn't that far off. He's really back in his peak Mr. Consistency days. He's not been outside the top five. He's had 3 podiums in 4 Grand Prix. He couldn't, could he?
I mean, I've said that in one of the previews or even review shows as well. I called it at the start of the season that this is consistency will favor not the top team. And this is exactly what's happening with George. He doesn't need to take risks. He just needs to be consistent, get the points, get podiums, and he will slide in with the drivers championship because you're gonna have these top drivers like Lando, Oscar, Max take some of these gambles and these risks. So being with the consistency as well, George has the opportunity to get the drivers championship or even get close to second or third. When it comes again, as you mentioned, with the constructors as well, there is a gap right now. But the thing is, Kimi's actually not doing too bad as well, and that's going to help the championship as well. Obviously, he placed just out of the points last race in Bahrain, but he was very close battling with Oliver Behrman and a few other drivers to get into like the top 10 as well. So having both of the drivers as well is going to help because if you compare it to Red Bull doesn't have both of the. Well, now that Yuki's come in, that might benefit as well. But the second driver is going to be the key for the Constructors' Championship. McLaren has 2 strong drivers. These other teams, not so much, but the consistency and not taking risks, it's better to get maybe 1 or 2 lower points than to not even get points at all as well. So I think it'll be interesting to see. With George, he will be very consistent and keep it very quiet and make sure that his races as well, he didn't put a foot wrong most of the time. Obviously, the last lap with the battles with Norris was kind of some of the things we saw that were like actual chances and opportunities. But throughout the race as well, he had a quiet race as well to an extent. So because of that, I think we should expect good performances for him, especially coming up into Jeddah, going into the these next few races as well, and also seeing what the upgrades of Mercedes will have as well, and how they're going to help with the drivers and looking at the data as well from how it was in Bahrain from the weekend as well. But yeah, I wasn't shocked because I called it at the beginning, but I'm pleasantly surprised it's been this good so far already. 4 races, technically 5 races into the season.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that Mercedes is looking a lot more consistent as well to go along with Russell's consistency as well. On top of that, last season it was a car that only really seemed to be on the top pace in really cold conditions. But we've seen during a few Grand Prix so far this season, including Bahrain, of course, where it's been rather hot, and it's still been competitive, which I think is really positive for them as a whole. Owain, they've found a bit of. They were just talking about Red Bull losing consistency. Mercedes have found more consistency, and George Russell has that consistency. The only thing that's really kind of letting them down in a sense to an extent, and I say that in terms of pure points. Obviously, Antonelli's done amazingly well so far this season on the whole. If they had 2 George Russells effectively, they would be up there with McLaren. They're not that far off really. So it's very encouraging for Mercedes because I personally wasn't really expecting them to make this kind of big ground, especially with a big regs change in 26. But that car's looking decent.
Yeah, the Mercedes is looking really good. I mean, I think the only reason that they missed out on a double points finish for the race, for Bahrain, is that they pit Antonelli during the safety car. Now it's kind of up for debate. I think maybe obviously they knew from Antonelli's first stint what the pace and the deg on the softs was. Then they've obviously used that to make the decision for Russell and Antonelli, obviously himself, to go for a second set of used softs. But the thing is, he'd only done a few laps on them, and I'm not saying that he would have made it to the end of the race, but at least I think it would have at least been worth it to try. I mean, it's a big ask, let's be honest. I mean, they got caught out with that with that second pit stop, and trying to go for the third, I think, was maybe where they went wrong. But they were, as you say, super quick. They were holding their own, and I really think the Mercedes was on balance, on average, probably the second fastest car. I don't know whether the data supports that, but just sort of looking at it visually, anecdotally, it looks like it was the second fastest car compared to the McLarens. I mean, I think the Ferraris at times were maybe were slightly faster, but across the whole race stint, the Mercedes were more performant. And I think Antonelli is kind of in the position that George Russell was a few years ago. Is that he's still. You got to remember, like, he's done a load of testing mileage, but the guy is still a rookie and he looks incredibly quick. But he's still learning, and at a certain point, you got to account for that and see that he's maybe going to have a slightly peakier performance with a slightly more troughs in them in where he's going to finish. But I think they kind of did put him up the river a little bit by doing that second stop, and at least maybe that third stop, and maybe if they'd given Antonelli the chance, we'd be sat here talking about a great finish for Antonelli, because he lost so many places as a result of that, with 60 seconds basically. Well, it's probably more like 50, sorry, with the safety car, but 50 seconds worth of pit stop that he, with 20 seconds of it, he didn't really need to take. So I think that Antonelli sort of, if they allowed him to try for that track position, to take the track position and take the softs to the end, then he might have had a much better job rather than having to fight through the field with time that he was probably never going to make up. But it's really looking good for Mercedes to be in such a good position at this stage of the season.
Yeah, definitely, without a doubt. I mean, Antonelli just missing out on points in the end, P11 for him. But he'll have his good days and have his bad days. Whether it's him making a mistake or his team making a mistake, it can happen to any of them. And yeah, he's learning in the car. He's learning out of the car. He's still not finished school, as we've managed a few times on this show, which just blows my mind. Really, being a Formula One driver and finishing his A levels, or whatever the Italian equivalent of it is over there, absolutely incredible stuff. And speaking of Italy, Ferrari. Let's talk about Ferrari now. They didn't manage to get a podium, unfortunately, for them during this Grand Prix, but they were only just off of it. They looked a lot more competitive. That new floor seems to be not really the silver bullet. They're not back challenging for wins or anything, but definitely a step in the right direction for them, Sophia. Charles Leclerc in fourth place and Hamilton in fifth. Leclerc only just missing out on that podium, of course, with Norris's late surge there. I mean, it's not really right to say that our Ferrari back, but I think Ferrari have probably got on top of their car a bit more. They can run it as low as what it should be, because especially around a track like Bahrain, which we saw last weekend, if you're running a high ride height around there, you're going to be mincemeat on the straights. And thankfully, we didn't see that.
Definitely. I mean, it's definitely a step forward. You can even see in Hamilton's interviews afterwards as well, saying how this upgrade has helped the team. And we knew it was never going to be a night and day fix with this floor coming in, but to see this slow progression and the battles going on, Hamilton had a few battles this weekend in Bahrain, and obviously Charles with Lando in the last couple of laps as well. So again, this kind of comes back into the conversation of the consistency as well, because having this new floor and kind of running it the way that Lewis likes it, and obviously Charles kind of has a little bit of a similar driving pattern as Lewis as well. I think this is going to benefit them going forward. Had they brought this in sooner, we probably would have seen a different outcome. Definitely, obviously, I would even say that probably wouldn't even lead to one of the disqualifications in China as well, which is the crucial points needed in both the Drivers' and Constructors' Championship. It'll be interesting seeing in Jeddah as well, because it is a high-speed track as well. And with sometimes upgrades might obviously work with some tracks and some not. And given Bahrain, all the testing, all the data, comparing it as well will help to see, is this new floor actually the best for the races or for certain tracks, or is it going to be kind of special one-off situations? One thing as well with the races is some of the calls that they've done about the tire strategies was a little bit interesting. They were one of the few teams that did both drivers with the same tire strategies, even though they were both close to each other in the grid, which I was kind of surprised with. Normally, you would probably expect maybe to do one have a gamble compared to the other as well. But the fact that they did double stack pit stops and both running the same kind of tires, I was a little bit shocked. But it was kind of damage limitations though as well, because they both had both of the drivers in the top 5 with crucial points both in the Drivers' and Constructors' Championship. But yeah, I was expecting a bit more, and obviously we might see hopefully some changes of strategy, changes of calls with Jeddah. Obviously, anything can really happen in that race. Let's be honest. And so much has kind of gone on over the last 3-4 years of racing there. But yeah, not even damage limitations, but it's a step forward. But it's not going to be the final step. I'm hoping some of the new upgrades that they'll have, probably not obviously in Jeddah, but in a few other races coming down the line, will also help alongside this floor upgrade that took place last weekend.
Yeah, it's an interesting form. Ferrari will always want more. The oldest and most successful team in Formula One. They want to be winning every single Grand Prix, every single championship. That's just what they want. That's their goal. It has to be their goal. 2 stars for not maximizing the potential, or 4 stars for improvement for Ferrari. Have your say in the comments below. You can tweet us or post to us anywhere you can find the @ at Grid Talk UK. And speaking of star ratings, if you're enjoying this podcast, we would really appreciate it if you could take 5 to leave us a 5-star rating on Spotify or a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. Also, if you're listening and you're not currently subscribed to the channel, please do consider helping us out with a like and subscribe. And you can find out when we go live next, hopefully after the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix this weekend. So, speaking of Saudi Arabia, of course, we are heading there this weekend. We're going back to the Jeddah Corniche circuit. It's a relatively new addition to the Formula One world calendar, but it is also a track that has made plenty of history in its short time on the calendar. Sophia, what are your main memories of Jeddah in Formula One?
I mean, some of it has just been the actual racing itself. It's so narrow, it's so fast. I believe it's either the third or fourth fastest track on the circuits as well. So just actual battling. I think one of the memories that comes to my mind was randomly, because if you listen to like Formula Reports, I talk about penalties about F2 and F3. Alonso's penalty, 10-second penalty post race to 2023, dropping him, I believe, out of the podium to fourth and giving Russell the final podium. That's the one that kind of came up in my head when I first thought about racing in Jeddah. I mean, the thing is, it's been a Red Bull dominated track the last 3 out of 4 races. Max has done it twice. Obviously, we had a 1-2 for Red Bull. Don't think we're going to get that this weekend, but just some of the close battling. Obviously, Ollie Behrman as well, making his debut, finishing 7th in the points. Another cool one as well. He's 7 races, 5 times in points as well throughout his F1 career so far as well. So, yeah, Alonso's 10-second penalty and Behrman's debut are probably the 2 that come straight to my mind when I think about Jeddah right now and the racing overall.
Yeah, and let's not talk about that Alonso penalty, because something may or may not have happened that was a bit backhanded. But we'll skip straight past that. We'll not dwell on that. Of course, something that can't be ignored as well is, I mean, the general tightness of this track. Like Sophia said, it's a very fast circuit. It's one of the fastest on the calendar. I think it's quite comfortably the fastest street circuit on the calendar as well. It's very tight in places. The walls very much do punish mistakes. I think Verstappen made a mistake years ago in qualifying here. It's not that uncommon to really test the boundaries when it comes to that. It's like a bit like Monaco or Singapore. You make a mistake, you're in the barriers and you're in a world of hurt at that point. And we can't ignore the fact that we had a very dramatic title moment as well here in 2021 between Hamilton and Verstappen. We've got a very tight world championship right now in the drivers, the 2 McLaren boys, George Russell, Max Verstappen, all close to one another. Could we see some more drama this weekend, Owain?
I think quite possibly. It's a track that I think, even despite what your car's doing, it rewards the drivers who can do the best with the machinery they have. It's a circuit that rewards having a good rhythm, making sure that you're putting the car exactly where it needs to be, because you get offline and you very, very quickly end up either having to slow down if you're in qualifying, or probably on the marbles and probably heading for some concrete if you're in anything else, if you're in the race. So it is a difficult track, and the speeds are so high that if something does let go, or if you do tag a wall, it's not going to be a small one. You're probably going to end up somewhere, probably in a pile of what used to be beautifully and meticulously crafted carbon fiber. it's one of those tracks where the best drivers get to shine, and even then, sometimes they don't exactly hold it together. Luckily for Max Verstappen, the walls have been moved back in the area where he tagged it on his what would look like was going to be an astoundingly good pole lap. Um, but the circuit bites, and I think that's what for all of the issues that we have with maybe racing in Saudi Arabia, that's what we want. Is we want punishing difficult tracks that make the drivers have to, use all of their talents, um, and that's what separates the good drivers from the great drivers. So that's honestly, it's got to be one of the best parts about Jeddah. And it's honestly, you mentioned Ollie Behrman, getting points there on his debut with Ferrari owing to Carlos Sainz having his appendix out, but being able to do that even in a Ferrari. But on debut nonetheless is what got him a seat, and that's how it shows how good how good these guys can be.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a lot of very experienced drivers, of course, in the field currently. The likes of Hulkenberg, Hamilton, Alonso, some of the most experienced drivers in the history of Formula One. But we've got a standout rookie field, and either whether you count Liam Lawson in that or not, you've still got a quarter of the grid, if not more, part of that. And yeah, Behrman as well. He's going to be a really interesting one. I mean, qualifying last in Bahrain, then getting up to the points by the end is just ridiculous. Like, how is this kid doing it? And of course, like you both said, actually, of course, he does have experience of this track, not only in the junior categories, but also in Formula One as well, coming in as that last minute super sub last year for Carlos Sainz. But we have seen some drivers really struggle around this track before. It's a very difficult one, very punishing. We've got a few rookies in the field. How do you think they're going to get on, Sophia? Because we've got a real mix of rookies, and I think all of them have acquitted themselves pretty well. I'd say the one exception that's perhaps Jack Doohan, but he did have a better weekend in Bahrain this last weekend. So how do you think they're all going to get on this weekend in Jeddah?
I think besides Ollie, actually the only other rookie who probably would fare out to be better fitted for this race is Isaac Hajar as well. So looking at junior careers, obviously Kimi skipped Formula 3 and went into Formula 2. He's only had one racing at the circuit. Lawson, I believe, only did one as well. At one point, there was Formula 3 racing in Jeddah as well, which was Ollie Behrman's as well. So Ollie actually has the most experience, I would say, obviously given racing in F1, but obviously Formula 2 and Formula 3, followed by Isaac Hajar as well. It's punishable, as we've mentioned before. And I think the big indicators will be how practices will go. I think FP1, these rookies are going to play it safe and just get comfortable with the track. But then qualifying is kind of a big one as well to look at, because obviously we have seen some times where drivers have not the best qualifying, suffered some damages to the point that they don't even start or don't even had to withdraw as well. I believe 2022, it was Yuki and Mick that both did not even race at all. One suffering damages from qualifying, and then one just having a power issue as well. So I think they're going to be coasting more and probably not willing to take that much of a risk this weekend. But again, I could also be wrong as well, especially for maybe Kimi, who is in a better car compared to everybody else, who wants the points for the Drivers' Championship. He's currently ahead of Lewis Hamilton by 2 points. So, he's probably the one that I think will go for it, but then I think the other ones will just play it safe and just maybe not make sure to put a foot wrong. But definitely one to watch out will be Ollie Behrman. I think another one maybe to look out for, because he has the least amount of experience compared to all the rookies, is Jack Doohan, as you mentioned as well, who's never been on this track compared to the others in some capacity as well. But hopefully, fingers crossed, I don't want to see any drivers have issues, damages, crashes, but I'm really hoping that all the rookies do finish the race and also have a good qualifying as well this weekend.
Fingers very firmly crossed for all of those guys. Hopefully, all get on very well this weekend. Yeah, let's hope for just a safe and eventful race this weekend. It's going to be a good one, I'm sure, around the Jeddah Corniche circuit. But it's time to put our money where our mouths are. It's time for the predictions. Top 3 prediction, pole position prediction, and also the bold prediction, Owain, for this weekend's Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. You're on mute, Owain.
We've been doing this however long. You know what we've been doing. We had a Facebook memory recently where we've been doing this for 6 years, and I can't believe that I've just done that again. I think it's 5 years we've been doing it remote, and I've still managed to do that. So, maybe I'll never get the hang of it. No, I think I'm gonna have to go off the form book really more than anything else. And I'm gonna have to go with, this is a high speed track with a lot of high speed corners. Um, I'm gonna have to give pole to Piastri. I still think, coming off the back of Bahrain, I'm gonna go with second place. Sorry, lights to flag victory actually for Piastri as well to put him in first. Um, then I'm gonna put, I think maybe Ferrari maybe have it. So in that case, I'm gonna go. Have I said second thus far? No, I haven't. Oh, you know what? In that case, oh, good, because that means I can put Leclerc in second and then Norris in third. So I'm banking on um, Ferrari not inevitably messing up the strategy um, yet again. Um, and then my bold prediction is, you know what? My bold prediction is going to be that Max Verstappen is inside the top five. I just don't think that Red Bull will do it.
We'll see what happens. It is a track where they have, of course, won before on a number of occasions, but they've done that pretty much everywhere for the past few seasons. They're not quite themselves at the moment. Same to you, please, Sophia. The podium prediction, the bold prediction, and who's gonna start on pole?
Okay. Do I want to play it safe? I want good points.
No, be adventurous. Do it.
No, I've done that for the last two, and I've now dropped to third. I don't like this. I
You think
went.
that's bad? I'm still on 10. What was it? 10 or 11 points because I got
I was
none
leading.
got none in the last one. So yeah, go safe.
Yeah, I was leading. I'm not trying to choke at like at the end, but I kind of agree with Owain about Piastri. I think he will take pole. I think it'll be a quick car. However, I don't think he will win. I think after this weekend, I think Norris will kind of kick himself into gear, so to speak, and take the win. I think P2 will be Piastri, so McLaren 1-2. And P3, I think because of the foreign previous track history and well suited, I think Charles will be P3. I mean, going with him over Lewis in the Ferrari because I think he's just more settled in, obviously, with his experience in the Ferrari. So yeah, Charles P3. My bold, I will say, because he's not had any points yet this season, still, Fernando Alonso into the points. Obviously he P5 last season, few other times as well, good opportunities. I think Aston Martin, it's a decent car. We can see how it's going with Stroll. So I think finally Alonso will get points. It's taken 5 races of his season of this career to get points. So I'm going to go with Alonso as my bold.
There's so much wrong with what you just said in a sense there, Sphere, because like saying that Alonso is struggling so much to get points, that Stroll is set in the way. It doesn't seem possible, but it's all correct. You're all right what you're saying. Probably should have phrased that slightly differently, but it doesn't seem like this should be the reality that we're in. But here we are, and yeah, unfortunately, it's been a turgid season for Fernando Alonso. It really has. It is a track where he has got a podium, lost a podium, and got a podium back in the past. So hopefully he'll get at least some points this weekend coming up for his sake. Because that is unfortunately a bold prediction. I would say that definitely qualifies. I'm gonna go with unsurprisingly. I'm gonna go with McLaren to get. Yeah, I'll go for the 1-2. I'll go for the 1-2. I'm going to go with Piastri as well. I am going to go with Piastri as well because I seem to remember him winning here a few times in like Formula 2 and Formula 3 back in the day. It's feels maybe shaking head. He might have won his title here or something at some, but I don't know. I remember being very, very happy. And he beat Norris, and I definitely can look at it right now. He did beat Norris here last year, so that's my thinking. That's my logic there. Although if you look at my results in the form table for Grid Talk's predictions, maybe you should not listen to what I say. But anyway, for the podium, the last podium, I'm gonna go for Charles. I'm gonna go for Charles. He just missed out in Bahrain. there is some pace in that Ferrari car. I don't really see Red Bull being there. George Russell could do it again, of course, though. Or maybe a wild Antonelli, you never know. But we'll see what happens. Pole position. You know what, I'm gonna go a bit different. I'm gonna go for Norris to get pole position. I'm gonna go with a bit of a lackluster start, shall we say. I don't want to say bottle job, but I will say a lackluster start for him with that. Bold prediction. Bold prediction. You know what? It's just completely random and off the cuff. I am going to go for Nico Hulkenberg to get some points in that Sauber. I've just got a funny feeling. I don't know why. Don't know why. But yeah, we'll see. But yeah, there we go. Sophia's confirmed it. Oscar did win here in Formula 2, so I wasn't going completely crazy. Um, but I hope you guys have enjoyed this podcast. Shall we do some good old plugging of the social medias and everything away? I did mention it a little bit ago, I do believe, but where can you find more from Grid Talk on the social medias?
Yeah, it's a slightly longer one for us, but so because of that, I will just remind you that if you'd like to engage with us on social media, then come and find us at Grid Talk UK on all of the social media platforms with the app. You can come and talk to us. You can tell us that we're wrong, tell us that we're delusional, tell us that I'm an idiot for predicting every single thing I did for Bahrain because it all went completely nuts. You know what? Looking back on it, I was completely wrong. But if you'd like to come and tell us that, then yeah, that's at Grid Talk UK on all of the social media platforms with the at.
Yeah, what else is the comments section for? Sophia, anything you want to promote?
Yeah, I do small clips about Formula 2, Formula 3, and F1 Academy on Formula Reports. This weekend, where F1 Academy is back racing in Jeddah, and obviously F2 will be taking place as well. So you can find us on all social media at Formula Reports, website as well, MSN, and all that.
Thank you very much. Yeah, Sophia very much covering for me in a sense by getting some race report action from the junior categories. My F1 race review has just gone live though on Formula Reports. If you want to see some more from me, you can head over there as well. But yeah, thank you very much for listening or watching this podcast. Grid Talk is also available on YouTube, where most of our episodes are recorded live, especially those race review shows, as well as Amazon Fire, Spotify, Apple Music, Verbal, and Pocket Cast. Just search for F1 Grid Talk for our big back catalogue of shows with previews and reactions to the race results. A huge thank you to Jared, Bradley, and Holly Eagle for supporting us even further on Patreon. If you want us to support us even more, you can head over there, get some exclusive member benefits, including our Beyond the Grid Talk podcast, which is a Patreon exclusive. So also be sure to be subscribed to the YouTube channel as well to know when we're going live with our next weekly episode. And thank you very much for listening to the Grid Talk podcast, and goodbye.